Hey there, and happy Friday to you. My gosh, we have another great one in this series today. Just to remind you, this is right in the middle of a 2 week job search series. We're covering everything from how to fix your resume, how to improve your LinkedIn profile, really the right way to reach out to the decision maker. That's still coming up next week, along with how to use social media marketing in your job search. Well, today is not one of my regular lectures. Today is one of the Ask Self Recruiter Q&A sessions. Let me just share my screen. Hang on just one second. Oh, there we go. Welcome. And we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things today because today is really one of those days you need to begin to take control back in your job search. By the way, if you're not getting your questions answered, send them in. Send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. We're going to get your questions answered. In case you've not seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you are suffering from your career branding not getting the right staging, lighting, positioning that it really needs, I certainly know who you should work with. All my services are over on my Self Recruiter website, right under the services tab. Now, as we get into today's questions, it's really about beginning to take back control as you go after a new job. So here are 14 questions all on job search strategies. Let's get right to the first one. When is the best time to start my job search? Well, there's a lot of different answers to this question, but the very best time to start your job search is when you are still gainfully employed. Oh, you may have lost interest in your job. You may have lost loyalty or faith to your job. Maybe you really can't wait. I'd really like to leave now. But my recommendation is to stay in that job, keep it functioning, keep that revenue stream moving, and start your job search now while you're under less financial pressure. Also, if you're happy in your job, great time to begin to do the right things for that next step, even though the next step may not seem like it's right there. Fix your career story now. Begin to look and really court relationships in those companies that you might like to move to next, even though you're not ready to start today. Let's get on to the next question. Which job search websites should I use? Well, there's so many, and boy, do they change over the years. Years ago, I might have said, oh, Monster or Career Builder or this or that. Yes, those job search boards have their place as well. Typically, in my long list of activities that lead to the next job, they're actually in last place. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't use job search websites, but you have to be careful in the amount of time you invest. Really, your time is the only resource you have as a job seeker. So you have to be really, really careful about that. Let's get to some real answers here. Must use LinkedIn. If you do not use LinkedIn, you do not exist professionally. You know, we used to be able to get hired by this simple technology called a piece of paper, resume. Today, if I've got a great resume and I go to look you up on LinkedIn and you're not there, what is this person even real? If you don't exist in the virtual world professionally, you don't exist within your profession. So certainly LinkedIn, Twitter. Almost lose my lunch every time I go to mention that, but not the 158 tweets over the weekend type thing. But what you need to do, which I teach in my LinkedIn lecture right over my Self Recruiter YouTube channel, is really just go into your LinkedIn, add your Twitter, and when you come up with the correct sharing strategy plan, and by the way, that's my Monday or Tuesday lecture coming up next week called Career Evolution. You know, when you start this social media share plan of content using your profile as a selling tool, well, then you want it to seamlessly flow out to Twitter without ever having to go there. And you do that by connecting Twitter. So people go and search Twitter to find people like you. Your content has to show up on Twitter, even if you never really go there yourself. Facebook, well, not for most people. I maybe do have maybe 2, 3, 4% of all my clients that might use Facebook for career. But you have to have such a high degree of ability to self-edit. Can't be fun, can't do any of the normal stuff on Facebook. So most people do not use it that way. Instagram, well, if you're in creative, I don't know how you don't use Instagram as part of what you present. But even if you're not in creative, you might use Instagram the way I use it, which is to really showcase who I am outside of work, because hiring decisions or buying decisions, whichever it may be, those are not only about the person being capable or qualified, but we want to get them. Who are they? What makes them tick? So check out my Instagram to find out what makes me tick. Those are a few of the websites that I might recommend. Should I apply for a job when I'm missing some of the requirements? Almost always. Now, don't mishear that. I'm not saying you should apply for jobs that you are just not, ready for, jobs that you can't fulfill the requirements. But there's a difference between having the requirements and being able to fulfill the requirements. Employers today tend to ask for everything and the kitchen sink too. Ask them for this, ask them for that. They might like this one, put that in there. And then they look for all of these things. And what I found out from years in recruiting, especially once I'd reached the VP level across 100 office recruiting system where I could see all of the back end of every single placement, who were these companies hiring? In the end, about 50% of the time, the final person they selected was missing 2 or 3 key items that must be, won't be considered, won't even be seen without these things. So absolutely, you think you're right for the job and you're missing a couple things, you absolutely go right after that job. I might take a little issue with the word apply, because if you've seen my other lectures, really not a fan of applying for jobs online. I'm a big fan, like I teach in my LinkedIn lecture, of going right to the decision maker. Let's go to the next question. How can I apply for jobs other than online? Oh my gosh, I'm glad you asked. Thanks for everyone that sent some questions in. By the way, thank you if you're joining me on the LinkedIn platform. You may be joining me over on my Facebook platform, or you might even be watching over on the YouTube channel. Wherever you're joining in today, thanks so much. Please do hit that like, subscribe, bell, all that kind of fun stuff. I think you know what to do. Back to the question. Applying for jobs other than online. Like, what is that all about? Biggest thing is really going right to the decision maker. You basically understand how these companies are structured that you've worked for in the past. You more or less know how the organizational chart would work. Not very difficult, the same way I teach in my LinkedIn lecture, to go and reverse search the organization, reconstruct the org chart, and now you know exactly who you need to influence. Who are the 3, 4, or 5 people that might be somehow involved in that conversation to hire a person like you? Those would be great people to reach out, introduce, and pitch yourself and go right for the jugular to get that meeting. Other than that, there's a lot of different ways to go after jobs, and most of it might be through a lot of various networking and other things. And I know, because I took a sneak peek look at the questions, there's some other questions coming up that will give a little more detailed answers. So I'm going to save a little bit of answer for there. What are the various ways I might get hired? Well, there's a lot of ways we might get hired. This may even seem a variation on the last question, but you might get hired simply because you randomly ran into someone, knocked their stuff over, and had to help them pick it up, and that started a relationship. Yes, that is extremely random, and that's not likely to lead to your career future, but we do have to be always open to possibility. That means I could go and volunteer places. Years ago, I had a client that had gotten themselves into an emotionally difficult place where really it had gotten so bad for them they could not leave the house. Now, in the pandemic world today, that's a different scenario completely, because some of us can't leave the house. I get it. But when it was a normal world and you get yourself into this place of, I just can't bear to leave my house, very difficult to become employed. My advice to that person is, you must be passionate about something. Passionate about something. Oh yeah, I support the blood bank. I give blood all the time. I'm like, fantastic, fantastic. Go and volunteer at the blood bank. No, but that won't have anything to do with what I do as a profession. I said, that's not your real problem right now. Your real problem right now is you can't leave the house. You've got to get back into society. You've got to get feeling different about yourself. Go and volunteer. And it took 2 or 3 weeks, but I suddenly got that call going, guess where I am? I hope you're at the blood bank, on the phone volunteering. She's like, oh, nothing to do with what I do. And 2 or 3 months later, they were so impressed with her energy. She was in marketing. They had a marketing role open up, and she landed her job. Volunteering can open doors. Going and getting involved with your professional association can open doors. Getting involved with a lot of different networking events can open up opportunities. Going to different conferences and engaging different people that work at different companies. All sorts of ways to begin the conversation to get yourself hired. You have to think about what is possible, and those naysayers that say, oh, it's never going to happen for you, kick them by the wayside. Those folks are going to be dinosaurs. They're going to be gasoline in someone's tank someday. say a little prayer, and move on. Let's take the next question here. How do I look for a new job while I'm still employed? This one's a little tricky. First off, I'm a firm believer that while you are employed, you owe your loyalties to that employer. That employer, in my view, is paying you, and in return, you owe the loyalty. I grew up in small business. I've had a lot of direct employees, myself. I understand that piece of it. However, your employer does not own you. They are buying or renting your time. Therefore, you need to give 100% to that job and then also find a way to carve out just a little bit of time for yourself. While you're doing a great job for the employer, even if you don't like it any longer, keep delivering. So you take the high road, carve out a little bit of time here and there. You might even say, but I don't have any time. I bet you can carve out at least 3 30-minute time spots over the course of the entire week. Ones where you stay very selfish for you and you began to do some of the outreach activities I talk about in my Supercharging Your Job Search lecture, also over at my YouTube channel. Check that one out as well. Mostly when we're unemployed, we do need to improve our LinkedIn profile. That makes us feel vulnerable. People will ask me, are you working on your LinkedIn profile? Now, I heard that question. That question said nothing about looking for a job. I know what they're hinting at. I'm like, absolutely. Using an agree but disagree technique. Absolutely. I realized that I hadn't worked on it in so long, I'd neglected it. We should all be working on it because it makes our function and our interaction with our clients and our vendors so much easier. Absolutely. And that's true, by the way, as long as it makes you also very much more attractive to be employed elsewhere. Next question, does resume length matter for certain professionals? And really, we're talking about people with tech background or people in nursing, in education, professors, people that might be used to that CV format. Well, let me just tell you this. I've worked with people in all those professions. A couple of years back, I was giving a talk over at the New York State Department of Labor about LinkedIn, and resume comes up because these are marketing documents that are related. And I happened to mention, resume, single sheet of paper in all cases. This guy in back suddenly starts to flip out. Come on. What if you got a 30-year career that's never going to fit? I'm like, okay, we'll take a breath. I get it. But I don't think your unhappiness is really because of my answer. I think your unhappiness is because you're going, how did I get here? How come no one can see my value? What am I doing sitting here? Not a surprise. That person hires me. They send me their stuff. It is 6 pages of long form CV with my eyes bleeding every single time. CEO and COO and CFO before that, and 30 years of endless career that they just couldn't stop talking about. It's an editing problem. You're never getting that to a single sheet of paper. Boom, like an exclamation point. Stunning. You know what they are? A CEO again. No one needs a CV format any longer, even though your profession may say, well, that's normal. I've worked with teachers, nurses, tech folks, you name it, down to a single sheet of paper that's dazzling. They get the interview every single time, even when the interviewer doesn't like the format of the resume. Focus on the right resume. If you need help there, the lecture is called Resume Renovation. Look it up over on my YouTube channel. What websites should I use in my job search? Gosh, is this a repeat? I'm not really sure. Maybe it's a variation on the earlier one. Certainly from job search standpoint, let's be clear. LinkedIn and Twitter, in my view, is a must. We're going to avoid things like Facebook. We're very likely going to incorporate or think about something like Instagram, either to show a creative side or to just show who we are outside of our profession, because there's only 2 reasons they hire you. Keep in mind, wouldn't consider anybody I didn't think was capable or qualified. I don't hire people because they're capable and qualified. Wouldn't even speak to someone I didn't think was capable and qualified. Why I hire people, or why anyone hires people, is number 1, chemistry above all other things. Number 2, confidence above all other things in chemistry. So your Instagram or some other avenue that you choose may be the one to showcase just a little bit of who you are outside of the profession, so they get a nice rounded view of who you are. Just think carefully, because most job seekers can probably only effectively manage 2 or 3, maybe even 4 different social media resources. The goal is not to have that eat up all your time. All of that should not be more than 20, 30, maybe even generously 40 minutes to an hour per day. The rest of the time has to be on actual job search techniques, check out the Supercharging Your Job Search lecture. Okay, next question. How important is my LinkedIn profile in my job search? Critically important to becoming employed or staying employed or being employed again. I don't use that word lightly. Critically. When we're in job search, we're in a very vulnerable place. We have so much confidence until the moment we're let go. And then like 15 minutes later, it's like we've gone through the emotional shredder. And it's like going through the stages of grief and the dismissal, I'm so done with that job. And then suddenly the bills start coming in the next week, and then the anger, and then all those stages. So LinkedIn profile, how does this all factor in? Again, you have a great resume. Wow, stunning background. Look you up on LinkedIn. You're not there. Out comes that resume over to Stack 2. No, you're on LinkedIn, but it's one of those placeholders. That's like a name. There's a couple titles. I just saw one of these earlier today. Someone claiming to be something, and there's nothing here. I'm like, you don't even know how to tell a story. There's no content here. Third one is exactly what's on the resume. Wait a minute. Your LinkedIn profile is exactly what's on the resume. Well, thank you for providing me nothing. I already have the resume. In my view, your LinkedIn profile is a very unique positioning and selling opportunity for you. It should be the polar opposite to your resume. My view, resume, single sheet of paper that makes them jump out of their chair. Get them in here, get them on the phone. I must speak with them. Not even sure why yet, but I must speak with them. That's the resume's job. Create that urgency and excitement. Polar opposite is how do we create that maybe as the structural backbone or framework skeletal system on LinkedIn. But now we have to add back all those delicious layers that makes you a real human being, a 360-degree human being. Not the dull stuff, just all the interesting things that does not fit on that single sheet of paper, including visual elements, all till it suddenly becomes this three-dimensional sales brochure about you. That's why your LinkedIn profile is so important. That existence of the profile can knock your competitor sideways and can move you right to the front of the line. It also makes it as a great selling brochure when you bypass HR by not applying online and go directly to the decision makers to introduce yourself. Extraordinarily effective, and not just at the executive level. That works on virtually every level across the economy. Let's take the next one here. Next question is, how do I use Twitter in my job search? Well, avoid doing the 158 tweets over the weekend. Really avoid tweeting about anything that is a lightning rod subject. We have a lot of lightning rod subjects in our society as of late, or as of the last few years. I'm not going to touch on those. I'm going to stay away from them, hopefully not to get jolted into whatever. But Twitter, how do we use it? We simply use it as if we have more important things to do. I'm not 12 or 13 years old. I can't spend my life on Twitter. I actually have other things I really need to do. So simply sign up for Twitter, connect it into your LinkedIn, give LinkedIn permission to post on your behalf when you click the word post. And then every single time you share something, which I strongly recommend you do by building an actual campaign, which I teach next week in my career evolution lecture, preparing for your career's next leap with social media marketing. Once you have the right LinkedIn profile, put this advertising marketing package together about content that's just right for your field, the players in your field, the challenges within your field. Few words of your opinion attached to each one. Suddenly your fingers on the button as they're looking over your shoulder for what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. My gosh, you are the right one. Let that all flow seamlessly out to Twitter. Never visit Twitter yourself. Really not necessary. Although there's so many more other things we could do with Twitter. I'm not going to give you an advanced class on job search on Twitter, but there's a few things. I could go to Twitter, search 4, 5, or 6 words. If you gave me any position, any level, any industry, give me a few minutes to think about it, 4, 5, or 6 words to find the best of the best in any function. Why don't you go look at a few of those best of the best that you need to emulate, you need to embody. Really, you need to chameleon your way over to that level of activity. A lot that you could learn from Twitter, but at a minimum, connect it to your LinkedIn and let that advertising double up for you with no additional effort. Simple toggle switch, even on the free version of LinkedIn. Next question. What is the hidden job market? Ooh, what is it? What is it? What is it? How is it hidden? It's hidden because they didn't put an ad. That's it. That's it. We didn't write it out in some long form article. We didn't post jobs over here. You don't even know it's available. So the hidden job market is about getting to the pain point before it's so painful they post a job. By the time they post a job, if that's a decent job, that's 1,000 to 2,000 resumes being sent in. 95% of them are not right for that job. But if you're right for that job, there's your good news and your bad news all at once. That's you mixed into 1,000, 2,000 resumes. Good luck for you. If you simply got to that need before they posted it, now you're probably only competing with 15 to 20 people. Competing with 15 to 20 people versus 1,000 to 2,000 is a very different competition. Hidden job market you get to by understanding what's going on in your industry, what's going on with the players within the industry, what are the challenges within your industry, and using your brain power to understand who has things going on. And then you begin to network behind the scenes with decision makers to understand where there are pain points and needs that have to be solved, which comes from networking. Not, do you have an open job? No, I don't. Do you have some pain? I certainly do. Go discover their pain. We'll do a whole show on that one because there's a lot of detail on how to dig those out. Any additional job search strategies? Well, I think I've covered most of them today. Let me get a little bit of a sip here. But certainly, obviously, we're going to look for the ones that are a direct match if you'd like to still do that again. You have to then look at your whole skill set, what you bring to the table, what your capabilities are, and go who you've even interacted with, vendor or client, and go who else, industry, organization, companies, has that same kind of relationship, even though it may be a different product, different service, totally different focus. You can seamlessly shift your skills over to those places. That's another thing to think about that takes deeper homework. Again, don't forget the idea of volunteering or getting involved even in your professional associations or being involved in larger networking organizations. All of these things can open up doors. The biggest thing is you have to move away from it being transactional. What do I mean? Well, if I do this, what do I get? Well, I don't know. But I do know what you're going to get if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. You need to learn how to open doors and leave them open. It's not transactional. Give, really without any memory of it. Every time someone helps you or gives to you, never, ever forget it. Those are some very important things to think about. Now, next question. What is the best or winning job search strategy? Gosh, I'm glad they asked like that. I can tell you exactly. My thoughts on the best or the most winning job search strategy is to get your ducks in order. And I'm not just talking about those new surgical N95 masks. Yep, I have one of those myself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about let's get our career story in order. Let's get your excitement about the right organizations in order. Did you line up the right targets? So rebrand and redevelop your story on your resume. Do the same thing in a much larger format, a more interactive format on the LinkedIn side. Change your social media marketing strategy for your LinkedIn profile so it begins to land in front of all sorts of people that are the right companies, the right targets, the right challenges that interest you. So many other things that we could do. You could write a few words of wisdom about why you are so good about what you do. That's as simple as writing 4, 5, 6 little page and a half articles. No one wants to read page and a half articles on some aspect of your specialty, almost from this angle. If I said, could you talk to my kid? They'd like to kind of come down the same career track as you. Could you give them some pearls of wisdom, some advice? Yeah, that's probably the wise mentoring tone that you need for the articles. Post those on the LinkedIn blog system, long form post. That becomes really, it's a carousel of searchable advertising. People can come search for you, which is the solution you wrote about. So many other strategies, but get your ducks in order, begin to market yourself, and then, in my view, unless you want to work for HR, bypass HR, go right to the decision maker, engage them, and book that meeting. And that takes us up to one more question. Look at that. I didn't even know how many. How do we stay motivated during my job search? That's tough. I mentioned the emotional shredder earlier, and all of that goes on at different times for us. And in job search, there tends to be the whole roller coaster effect of like I'm over the moon with excitement because I've just had an interview and I just booked a second one. I'm like I'm unstoppable, and then both of those somehow don't work out. I don't get called back, and suddenly I'm dragging my knuckles on the ground like they're bleeding. Emotionally, up and down, staying motivated. Build out your right story. Go back and rediscover your right story. Your job is to fall in love with your story and be the best darn teller of your story. As simple as this, you're going to have to allow yourself to drink just enough of the Kool-Aid so you become the most evangelical promoter of what you really bring to the table. If you are not excited about you, no one else will be excited about you. When you do the right match and are approaching the right targets, the ones that are of interest to you, it's all genuine. It's like a date. When it's real, the interest, the words don't actually matter. So it's not a certain set of words that I have to use. It's I actually have to want to work here. And that takes good darn homework. Check out the Supercharging Your Job Search lecture. Reinvent all of your career materials. Learn why you are going to be the very best at whatever it is you're going to pursue. And your job is to cast the doubters to the side. Oh, here it comes. Well, thank you guys for joining in today. This is the end of today's session. I believe it was 14 questions all on job search strategies. If you're not getting your questions answered, send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. Second part of my 2-week series is next week. So all of that is posted over on my Self-Recruiter website under the calendar tab. So do check that out. Join in and do share these and those with your friends. Hit like, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. And thank you guys for joining in and have a great start to your weekend. Take care.